Well, hello and welcome. How are you? Welcome to Hot Tea with Holly. I am Holly, and I am having a hot cup of tea today. Surprise, surprise. It is Japanese sencha. So I got up this morning. If you're watching this in playback, this is actually being filmed the day after the 4th of July. And 4th of July this year was on a Monday. So today is Tuesday. And I really had such a wonderful long weekend. And I took some time off. I was a little splurgy on my diet, just a little teeny tiny bit. So I woke up this morning and I was just feeling like that usual, like Monday morning fog. And I decided that I would make a bulletproof coffee with collagen, one of my favorites, because it's always such a good thing that really just like kicks me into gear. And for some reason, I got the recipe so wrong today. And I took the first sip and I was just like, bleh. I could not drink it. I took two or three sips and I was just like, I can't do it. We got to shift gears. So I shifted into a Japanese sencha and it's making me so happy. And the world is glorious again, just the way that caffeine has the magic of doing that. So, welcome. Today it's a wonderful Japanese sencha. If you're with me, what are you drinking? Awesome conversation today. Grab your notebook. Mm, Are you a green tea drinker? If you're not, let me know. I first got turned on to green tea so many years ago when I was trying to break a coffee habit. There was a time where I really abused coffee a little too much, and it was just a little too intense for my body. And so I remember I tried to go through this detox where I was trying to break the habit of coffee. And so I picked up on tea, and it took a really, really long time for me to fully make that adjustment to the point where I had fully adopted tea. Started off with rooibos, then it was black tea, then it became green tea. And then I had the opportunity of traveling to India, which was one of my favorite trips ever. Went to India and it was over. I drank so much tea when I was there. And when I came back, I was an official tea convert. And so over the years, it has just grown and grown and grown. And when you find the tea that's right for you, it just sticks. Are you a coffee drinker, a tea drinker? Are you having a hot beverage? Do share. Let's jump in. Today, we are talking about BMI. And more specifically, if you or your doctor has been focusing on BMI, I really encourage you to let that belief system go and start focusing on these five things instead. And more specifically, one of these five things I'm going to argue is the most important of all. So it blows my mind. BMI, the body mass index, was coined around 200 years ago. 200 years ago. Stop and think about that for a moment. If you're watching this in playback, this was filmed in 2020. 200 years ago, roughly in the 19th century, a mathematician and statistician, I hope I'm saying that right, and I'm not going to get his name right. He was Belgian or Dutch, I believe, maybe French, I'm not sure. But it was a mathematician created this equation to determine what we're calling the body mass index so that the government could determine how to allot supplies. And the whole goal of it was really just to kind of categorize people into underweight, they need more food, overweight, they need less food. Would you stop and think about that for a moment? The government had to determine who needed more food than other people in the 1800s. Okay. People were categorized as underweight and people were categorized as overweight. So if they were overweight, they didn't get as many rations. And if you were underweight, you got more food from the government. Think about that. That was the whole reason this equation was created. And let's not forget, this goes back to the 1800s in Europe, where fitness was odd. Only I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I don't know if this is accurate, but based on my education, the only people who were fit were athletes who were ultimately, in essence, a descendants of the old Spartan days, right? Where it's like if you were sentenced or you were a convict, having been convicted of some kind of breaking a law, you ultimately had to go to battle, right? It was a whole subculture, if you will, and those were the only people that were actually athletic or fit. The vast majority of the population was sedentary. And let's not forget, if we go earlier into world history, those who were underweight were looked down upon and were considered poor. And those who were robust and fat and large were usually those that were royalty because they had more access to food. Have I made my point? The BMI is so outdated and it doesn't accurately reflect where we are in 2020. I would even argue it doesn't even accurately assess where we were in like the 1990s. Even fitness has evolved, health as it has evolved in a huge way in the past 10 years, largely because of the advent of social media. Because of social media, my industry has been completely revolutionized, and people like me, people like you, are now privy to more advanced scientific information. And so you've gotten more educated, you've gotten more advanced in your understanding of health, fitness, nutrition, and the likes, and all of the reasons why we are here having this conversation today. So the BMI goes way back to reflect a time that isn't even relevant anymore. And oh, by the way, it was probably taken from statistics only on men. And number two, as I already said, it reflects a sedentary population. It doesn't at all take into account how much muscle you have. And it also doesn't take into account different ethnicities, different family and geographical genealogies, right? It really reflects Europe and the statistics and the humans that we were looking at in the European regions. So it's not going to take into account if you have a bigger build, a bigger bone structure, denser muscles, right? If your family history just lends to be a little bit hardier versus, let's say, if your family was a little bit more Asian descent, which is going to be smaller in structure and frame. So the BMI is really, I wish I could come up with a funnier acronym for it, right? But it's just not accurate at all. And I'm going to call out our medical institutions and say there are a lot of physicians, your general family doctor, who still use this as kind of a general way to categorize you because they have not been really educated on the body sciences. If you stop and think about this, your general family practice, your GP, your general doctor has zero education on the body sciences. They know medicine, they know disease identification, and maybe prevention, maybe. Generally, it's more disease identification and then the correction of the disease state, right? And they know prescription medicine, they know medicines. They don't have any formal education in the body sciences. So, why would that profession adopt something new or different than the BMI? It's time for us to start looking at a different way to assess and categorize where do you fall in terms of the health spectrum, but also as a predictor of your future health. And to me, isn't that all that matters? I think that's it. If you're here with me today live, please say hello. We are talking about why you should really just get rid of the conversation of BMI. And I'll be honest with you, as a health and fitness expert, I stopped paying attention to BMI probably 15 years ago, maybe more, maybe 20 years ago, when I started to realize how nonsensical, completely irrelevant, and nonsensical it is. It doesn't make sense at all. So I actually completely erased it from my repertoire easily 15 years ago. So when a client comes to me, and some of you come to me on a weekly basis, and it's like, well, my doctor said my BMI was above 25 and I needed to lose weight. And I'm like, in one ear and out the other. I don't even pay attention to what BMI is because it's so irrelevant. Have I made my point? If so, say hello, tell me yes, tell me no. Totally cool. If you disagree, let's have a lively conversation. So if you're popping in live, we're talking about how I'm going to encourage you today to forget about BMI, and I'm even going to go out on a limb. You ready? Next time you go to your doctor and they tell you what your BMI is, do me a favor. Share my message with your doctor and say, Doc, can I just request that you stop telling people what their BMI is because it's outdated? It's silly and you make yourself look like a fool. Let's have a different conversation. Would you please get yourself a little more educated so we can start talking about the 5 components of fitness instead? And more specifically, body composition, because it's all that matters. Nothing else matters except body composition. How much of you is muscle, how much of you is bone, and how much of you is fat? Nothing else matters. It really doesn't. Now, we could argue that your cardiovascular health and fitness matters, and it does. But I can tell you, if you improve your body composition through strength training and you increase your lean muscle mass, your cardiovascular health is going to improve. We know that even if you did nothing else but lifted weights 5 days a week, your cardiovascular health and fitness will improve. How is that for a conversation first thing on a Tuesday? Hello and welcome. If you're popping in live, this is going to be an awesome conversation because I am going to tell you what to focus on instead of BMI. Just forget about it. And oh, by the way, if you know what your BMI is and you're here with me live, share it. Let me know. I know mine right now. I just calculated it when I did research for this episode of Hot Tea with Holly. I calculated my own BMI and I actually went back in time from my memory and I calculated my BMI at different times in my life. So in my 20s, I was actually in shape, but much heavier. My BMI put me in the overweight category. I think it was. Hold on, let me look what category it was exactly. Hang on. Where is it? It put me in the overweight, pre-obese category when I was in my 20s. So I was higher fat. I was higher muscle. I was super fit. I felt like crap, but I was super fit. I could run 8 miles around Central Park and then go do a strength training, circuit training class for an hour and a half. I would work out for 3 hours a day. I felt like crap. That's a whole other conversation. But technically, I was fit. But my BMI was 27, I believe, at the time. And that puts me right in the pre-obese category. Now, I'm proud to admit from all of the conversations that we have here together and what my platform is about and the things that I share with you in terms of my own journey, I very naturally over the years have evolved in my conversation around using strength training and intentional nutrition to create the body that I need to keep up with the life that I love. And it's become the conversation that I share with you here. And so I very naturally have been able to come around to now a BMI, which is considered normal. So right now, my BMI is a flat 20.0. And that is smack dab in the middle of the normal range. Normal BMI range is 18.5 to 24.9. Let's call it 25. Okay. And I'm a 20. So my BMI is putting me smack dab in the normal. And I don't consider myself normal in any way you want to look at it at all. I would argue I've got a little more muscle mass than most women of my age, because let's not forget, BMI doesn't even take into consideration age. Do you know that? Do you know that BMI only takes into consideration your body weight divided by your height squared? Why are we squaring your height and then dividing it by your body weight? It doesn't take into consideration sex. It doesn't take into consideration ethnicity, genealogy, whether you are, let's say, from, Latin origin or African origin, European origin, Asian origin. It doesn't take that into consideration. Doesn't take into consideration how old you are. So if I was 14 or 50, and we're looking at that, it doesn't take that into consideration at all. And so it's completely nonsensical once you understand what BMI is. The BMI calculation is your body weight, generally in mass, but you can figure it out in pounds, divided by how tall you are squared. In essence, basically, those are the only factors to figure out your BMI. And then we're going to tell you if you are healthy or not, or if you're obese or not. And it just doesn't make sense, especially if you're someone who strength trains, if you are someone who does any kind of a workout that looks like CrossFit, if you're serious about your strength training, and if, let's say, you are from a family ethnicity or bloodline, if you will, that produces bigger bones, just let's call it more of an endomorph type body type, right? If your just family is just built a little bigger and fuller, and let's say your body fat's a little higher right now, but within a safe range, that's going to put you in the pre-obese or potentially even class 1 obese category on the BMI scale. It doesn't make sense at all. Have I made my point? Yes or no? Next time you go in for your checkup and your doctor says, "Oh, your BMI is getting a little high, take this blood sugar medication or take this weight loss medication," right? Let me give you a pill for that. Instead, what are you going to say? "Doc, I disagree. BMI is BS. Let's rewrite history and let's start having a different conversation. And instead, focus on these 5 things. One of these 5 things is more important than the other. Let's have it." So instead, what I really, really encourage that makes so much more sense, which harkens back to my education. And if you're new to my community, welcome. I have helped women and been in the fitness industry for over 30 years now. I have a degree in exercise physiology and nutrition from the Pennsylvania State University. I'm a certified strength and conditioning specialist. I'm the author of Lift to Get Lean. And yes, you've probably seen me quoted in your favorite magazine. So all of that is to be said. I am a bona fide, legit, proven expert in my field. And this goes back to my education. One of the very first things that I learned in exercise physiology is what we refer to as the 5 components of fitness. How fit your body is, not just your body weight divided by your height. This takes into consideration your athleticism, how active you are. What is the construct of your exercise programming? Are you doing cardiovascular activities? Are you looking at your flexibility? Are you looking at your bone density, your lean muscle mass, your muscular strength, your muscular endurance? These are the predictors of longevity as well as disease prevention and also disease correction. If you find yourself in one of those categories where you are facing some health challenges, your 5 components of fitness and starting to look at these things are really going to help you adjust and look at it a whole lot more accurately. So, there are 5 components to fitness. And what we mean by this is there are 5 different categories and ratings scales, if you will, that really look at you holistically in terms of, are you strong? Are you mobile? Do you have a healthy cardiovascular system, cardiorespiratory system? And how well are you built in terms of those more extended indications of fitness, right? I think fitness has gotten a little bastardized, if you will. We start to think of fitness as I look good and I've got biceps and I look athletic, but fitness is really how ready are you for battle, right? How resilient is your body to face life? Going up 3 flights of stairs if you need to, chasing after a little one, whether it's a child or a grandchild, right? Like, how well prepared are you for these life events? Carrying your groceries to the back of the parking lot, picking up a heavy box so that you can put it into the top shelf of your closet. These are predictors and indicators of your fitness. And these are the things that are really so much more important. 22 minutes in, and we got the eye twitch going. Please hold for me for 1 second while my eye adapts to my glasses. While we do that, let's say hello. Who is here with me today? As I've been rambling for a solid 22 minutes, stay with me because we are going to go over what the 5 components of fitness are in just a moment so you can understand how it's important for you to start to pay attention to these 5 things. And one of them, I will argue, trumps all of them. Heidi, hello. Heidi is having a new tea today. It's called a coffee, a coffee, FUCK coffee. I love it, which is a coffee substitute. It's roasted chicory root, cacao nibs, cacao powder, add a little bit of stevia. And oh my God, is it so good? Will you do me a favor, send me an email and send me a link, or actually post it here because I'm sure many of the people watching this or watching this in playback are going to want to know. I love the idea of this. So there was a time earlier this year, I think it was, when I wanted to use cacao to try and I might go back to this because I am ready to take a break from coffee. I just made a decision, you guys. I'm going to take a break from coffee. It is time. I woke up this morning and mentally I wanted it, but my body did want it. It's time. So we're going to try something like this. I generally don't like chicory root, but if it's covered up with cacao and cacao powder, I might like it. Earlier this year, I went on a cacao bender and I ordered some ceremonial grade cacao and was trying to have that be my morning beverage. And it just didn't stick for some reason. Went back to coffee, but I would love to try something else. So Heidi, that sounds amazing. And I really want to acknowledge you and say yes. I think that's a really wise thing for you because people like you and me definitely have to be careful with caffeine. Lois, how are you doing? Please do share an update. I'd love to hear from you if you're still here. Irene, thank you so much for talking about this topic. I'm so incredibly tired of doctors telling me my BMI is high. It's so dumb. I'm a female who is naturally muscular and I lift weights and I am 40% muscle. That's amazing. So yeah, I weigh more, but I'm in great shape. Absolutely, Irene. And that's exactly why we are having this conversation. And I hope next time you go to your doctor and your doctor even suggests that your BMI is high, give him a schooling for me, would you? Because you're probably more educated than he or she is. And it's time that we start having a different conversation here. This is just silliness, right? I need to start educating these medical doctors. Holly Miles, I am having MI Detox Electrolytes Tropical Flavor. I love it. Electrolytes are always such a good choice. Elizabeth, Twinings, pineapple and lychee. Hey, Elizabeth, is that a black tea, an herbal tea, a green tea? Because I would love that if that was a black tea. That sounds amazing. Okay, and there we go. Okay, welcome, welcome. So, all right, let's talk about the 5 things that I want you to be focused on instead. And oh, by the way, Heidi shared the link for us to this coffee alternative, cacao-based beverage if you are interested. The link is there in the comments over on Facebook, I believe, or if you were with me, if you're here with me on Facebook over on my Holly Perkins Fitness page. Actually, I think any of them, you'll probably see this comment. I'm not sure. So I'll post it on the blog as well if you're watching this in playback and are watching it on YouTube. So let's jump in. Rather than focusing on BMI, really and truly, I encourage you to just erase that concept from your mind. And if your doctor in the future even tells you what your BMI is, just don't even pay attention to it. It's silliness. And if you are here in my conversation, I know even more so it's silliness because you're not sedentary. And the BMI reflects men, most likely, who were sedentary. You're not most likely a man, and you're not sedentary if you're in my conversation in my community. So go ahead and just forget about it. And instead, I want you to come to understand what we in my industry call the 5 components of fitness. These are the 5 areas of what we call physical readiness, right? General physical preparedness. What really classifies you as just being physically ready for life's challenges. And let's not forget that it is your 3D real world physical body that's going to carry you through this life. And while there are a lot of aspects to your health, your longevity, and predictors of disease, these 5 things are the things that directly correlate to the reduction of many of the chronic diseases we see today. I would classify obesity as a disease, and some may not actually call it a disease, but it is a predictor of our biggest cardiovascular diseases like heart disease, stroke, diabetes, dyslipidemia, any kind of cholesterol issue that you may have, stroke, if I didn't say that already. And these 5 components of fitness are directly related to the reduction of the risk of those chronic disease states. So let's jump in. I'm going to save the best for last. There are 5 components of fitness, and I will argue one of them trumps them all. I'm going to save it for last. The first, which I find is very interesting, is flexibility. When we are looking at a person's general physical preparedness, their physical readiness, we do want to look at flexibility. Why? Because flexibility, from my perspective, also does indicate mobility. So flexibility generally is how flexible your muscles are, and mobility is really the range of motion around a joint. And those are technically 2 different things, but they can kind of be lumped into one general concept that we call flexibility. How mobile are you? And that is an indication of your fitness, but even more so, it's an indication of your potential for good longevity and healthy longevity. Because if you move well, we know life will be better going up and down stairs. All of your activities of daily living really are dependent on mobility and flexibility. So if you're here with me live or if you're watching this in playback, I would encourage you to grab a piece of paper, and just at the top, I want you to write a scale from 1 to 10. Okay, 1 to 10. And you can list out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 if you want. Or you could just put 1 on the left-hand side and 10 on the right-hand side. And you are going to kind of arbitrarily give yourself a rating on each of these 5 components. So by the end of today's session, you're going to be able to hone in on the 1 component of fitness or the 2 components that you really need to focus on in the coming weeks or months to really and truly improve your overall fitness. So number 1 is flexibility and mobility. And I realize that you may not necessarily have a fully accurate or educated sense of your mobility or flexibility, but I want you to take a stab at it. So on a scale from 1 to 10, If 1 represents you cannot touch your toes and you know that you are so immobile and so stiff, and you know that if you tried to go to a yoga class, it would be very uncomfortable and borderline dangerous. That's a 1. And a 10 is if you are the most flexible, mobile person you know, you go to your yoga class and you are impressing the yoga instructor. That is a 10. So, right now on a piece of paper or just in your mind or on your smartphone, I encourage you to write down on a scale from 1 to 10, where would you rank your own flexibility or mobility? Are you a 1 or you're 10? I'm going to give myself a 6 because I'm out of practice. When I am in practice with my yoga practice, I'm more like an 8 or a 9. A lot of times I'll go into yoga class and inevitably 9 times out of 10, when I'm leaving that yoga class, the yoga instructor usually pulls me aside and says, "Are you an instructor or a dancer?" Almost every single time. But I'm out of practice right now. And so I know that normally, historically, and where I prefer to be at like an 8 or a 9, and I consider myself an 8 or a 9. But right now in practice, I'm at like a 5 or a 6. I'm really immobile. I'm just out of practice. So I know that's something that I need to focus on. That's your first component of fitness. So, as a professional, if you showed up in my studio and I needed to run an assessment on you, I would take you through 8 to 10 specific postures or positions where I can assess the mobility of your hips, your back, your knees, your ankles, your shoulders, your upper back. So we can, your neck, so we can take a look at how mobile are you? How flexible are you? And that is one component of fitness that's far more telling than BMI, than your body weight divided by your height squared, right? Flexibility and mobility is a much bigger predictor of future health and longevity. Number 2, let's go with cardiovascular endurance or fitness. Now, technically, we would say it's cardiovascular endurance. I'm actually going to argue it's cardiovascular fitness because cardiovascular endurance really, I almost feel like this component of fitness is due for an update as well, because cardiovascular endurance really reflects how long you can go for a period of time at a modified or moderate heart rate. And I actually do think higher heart rate activities like sprinting or running at a challenging pace is also important. That is what we refer to as cardiovascular fitness. So, cardiovascular fitness is really how well is your cardiovascular system, your heart and your vascular system, able to support you during activities where your heart rate is above about 60% of your theoretical maximum heart rate. But that could be a slow jog, right? So if you are a slow runner like I am, you might be able to go out and run 10 miles at a low heart rate. But intensity sprinting, I am not very well trained for sprinting. Follow? That's the difference between cardiovascular endurance and cardiovascular fitness. So we kind of lump it all together into cardiovascular health, cardiovascular fitness. So if I showed up at your doorstep right now and I said, "Come on, let's go for a little jaunt outside." And what we're going to do is we're going to walk and jog. We're going to find a nice, gentle heart rate and cover 2 miles. We might run, and you're probably going to be able to get through it. You might jog it slowly, but you can get through it. I want you to rate yourself on that scale from 1 to 10, how well you think you could do that. On a scale from 1 to 10, if you and I went out for a gentle, slow jog for 2 miles, or maybe even a mile, and maybe we even walked and jogged some of it. We walked and we jogged. It's gentle and it's moderate. I want you to rate yourself on that same scale from 1 to 10. How well do you think that you would sustain that? How well do you think your body would respond to that? A 1 is, oh my gosh, I couldn't even walk a mile right now, let alone jog it. And a 10 is, oh, that would be a piece of cake. We could do that for 10 miles and then I could go run another 10 miles, right? That would be a 10. Piece of cake, super, super easy for you. And a 1, as I said, would be, oh my gosh, I can't even like get up and walk a mile. And a 10 is really, it would just be absolute piece of cake at a low to moderate intensity. Then I want you to imagine if I showed up at your doorstep and I said, hey, let's go out and we are going to sprint. We're going to walk and then we are going to sprint as fast as possible for 5 minutes. And we're going to do that 10 times. How well do you think you might sustain that? Or how well might you perform? Now, I know it would be ugly for me right now. So I would actually rate myself on a scale from 1 to 10. I'd give myself like a 2 or a 3 on this rating scale because I know that my cardiovascular fitness is not very high right now. I'm in the process of changing it, but right now it's not very high. My endurance is decent. I would say my endurance is probably like a 6, but my cardiovascular fitness, my ability to perform at high intensities is terrible right now. So I'm down around a 2 or a 3. So I want you to rate yourself just generally. You don't have to get this right. I just want you to take sort of a guttural reaction. If we had to rate you, where would your cardiovascular health, fitness, and endurance rank today, right now? Because this is another big indicator of your overall health, your general physical preparedness, which we call GPP, right? Your physical readiness, your fitness. Isn't this a whole lot more indicative of your health and your future longevity? Yes or no, right? Again, let's think about it. If BMI is your body weight, and if you've got a lot of muscle on you, Heidi, I think, Heidi, you are an incredible example of this. Heidi, we should calculate your BMI when you were 117 pounds versus your BMI where you are now or when you finished the master's. Same height. I'm going to use Heidi as an example because she is a beloved member of my community. We know each other very well. I know her body very well. She has coached with me for years. There was a time when Heidi and I first started working together where she was 117. Heidi, I don't know if you weighed even a little less than that. And now she weighs much more of that. Her body fat is lower. Her height is the same. Are you guys following? She's older, but not much. And her body, her BMI is higher. Can we just stop and think about this for a moment? Same person, same height. This person is now older in years, has a lot more muscle mass, is much heavier. And if we're just looking at BMI, her doctor would say, oh, your BMI just jumped 5 points. You need to go on a diet. When in actuality, she is 10 times more fit, more capable, more lean muscle mass, healthier, but her BMI went up because her body weight went up. Are you following? Where I am right now, when I get back into my full blossoming of my fitness ability, my BMI is going to go up. My BMI is low right now because my body weight is low, but that's because my muscle mass is a little low. When my muscle mass goes up, my BMI is going to go up because I started strength training differently. Is that really a cause for a negative score on my BMI? Are you ready to forget about BMI? It's nonsensical. Let's let go of that and instead start to focus on cardiovascular health, fitness, and endurance. That's number 2. The third component of fitness, and you may want to write this down, is muscular endurance. Muscular endurance means the ability of your muscles to perform at a certain percentage of the muscle's strength. Generally, we measure this on what we call a 1 rep maximum. So If I took you into my laboratory and we evaluated your fitness and we determined that you could perform 1 repetition or 3 repetitions of a barbell back squat, and we determined the weight load that you could perform 1 repetition was 185 pounds, let's say. Your 1 repetition maximal strength ability is 185 pounds. Muscular endurance is when we take that number, we cut it in half, and we look at how many repetitions you can perform nonstop. That's muscular endurance. So we look at your 1 or your 3 or your 5 repetition maximal weight load on a movement, leg press, squat. Then we come back and we take that number in half, we divide it by half, and I see and I count how many repetitions can you complete at 50% of your 1 or 3 or 5 rep maximal ability on the same movement pattern. That's what muscular endurance is. How long can you sustain repetitive muscular activity? Now, a great practical application of this is running. A lot of people think that running is a cardiovascular fitness activity. And while it does tax your cardiovascular system, I would argue it's more of a muscular endurance activity. So, a moderate jog, if you could jog moderately for 40 minutes versus 180 minutes, that's a reflection of your muscular endurance. Another assessment you could think of is if I put you on the leg press machine at a gym, or if I showed up at your house and gave you a light dumbbell and asked you to perform as many goblet squats as you could without stopping, that's muscular endurance. So right now, I want you to rate yourself again on that scale from 1 to 10. On the scale from 1 to 10, 1 is you could only perform 15 or 20 repetitions on that goblet squat or that leg press. And 10 is if you'd get bored. You could do 50 or 60 or 5 minutes or 10 minutes of repetitions on a leg press or a goblet squat. Stand up, sit down on a goblet squat. You could go all day long. How would you rank yourself on a scale from 1 to 10 on this exercise? Because that is going to reflect your current muscular endurance ability. And once again, isn't that a better predictor of your fitness and your health and your graceful aging likelihood than anything else? Absolutely, without a doubt. Your muscular endurance is far more indicative of your health and your ability than your BMI. Number 4 on the list of 5 components of fitness that you want to pay attention to. Number 4 is going to sound similar to number 3, but it's actually quite different. Number 4 is muscular strength. So remember a moment ago, I said if I brought you into my laboratory and we determined what the maximal weight load is where you could perform 1 repetition of a squat or a deadlift or a leg press, 1 repetition. What's the heaviest weight you could do once or twice or 3 times or 5 times? What is the weight load where you can only do it once? That is your muscular strength. How strong you are, how much weight you can move, the highest amount of weight that you can move, period, full stop. And generally, we look at that at a lower repetition range, but you could also rate yourself today on that scale from 1 to 10 for 10 repetitions. So I could say to you, how strong would you rate yourself if I showed up at your house and we loaded up your barbell and you performed 10 repetitions of a deadlift? How well would you rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 10 in terms of the heaviness of that weight load? Now, here too, I wouldn't rate myself super high because my weight loads in my core strength training movement patterns is not very high right now. My muscular strength isn't super high right now for myself. Now, compared to the general population, it's pretty impressive. So I'd rate myself around a 6, maybe a 7 in terms of my current muscular strength. But there have been times when I would rate myself at a 9, taking into consideration my own history, as well as how I would compare myself to other people. How would you rate yourself on that scale from 1 to 10 today in terms of what you imagine your muscular strength to be right now? How strong do you feel like you are? How strong, right? Can you pick up the heavy box? Can you carry 4 bags of heavy groceries over a huge parking lot? Or do you often find yourself struggling to open the jar of pickles and someone else needs to do it for you? Or do you struggle to pick up your couch and have, someone else pick it up and move it for you? Do you follow? How strong would you rate yourself right now? And some of you, Lois and Heidi, and maybe Elizabeth, I know you'd probably rate yourselves pretty high in terms of muscular strength. So I want you to rate yourself on that scale from 1 to 10. Pick a number, write it down. Because in a moment, after I reveal the fifth and final component to your fitness, the fifth thing that is way more a predictor of your health than BMI, I'm going to then have you take a look back at this rating scale of these 5 things and start focusing on those numbers that are lower. Let's increase those numbers that are lower. Like for me, it's flexibility and muscular strength. I'm going to start focusing on those in the coming weeks to get those up to match the other components of fitness. These 5 components of fitness are way more telling and valuable than your BMI. The fifth and final, and I would argue hands down, the most important factor to take a look at in terms of your health, well-being, longevity, and risk of disease, future disease, is, drum roll, body composition. Body composition is one of the 5 components of fitness because the more of you that is muscle and the less of you that is fat is an indicator of how fit you are, how ready you are, how high you rank in what we call GPP, general physical GPR, preparedness, GPP, general physical preparedness. How high would you rank on that scale does reflect your body composition. Because if your body fat is high and your muscle mass is low, that's a very different picture than if your muscle mass is high and your body fat is high. And it's also a very different picture when compared to if your muscle mass is high and your body fat is below 23%, right? So body composition, by far, hands down, is the replacement for BMI. And I would argue in the next 15 to 20 years, we will start to look at that instead of BMI. The only reason we aren't there yet is because up until 5 to 10 years ago, assessing your body composition accurately was very expensive. The only way to accurately assess your body composition is through a DEXA scan. And prior to 5 or 10 years ago, DEXA scans were very expensive. They were very rare. The only time you used it was if you were going to a weight loss clinic. Sure, we use a DEXA scan to look at your bone density, but not all bone density DEXA scans take a look at body composition. And so there are a lot of those DEXA scans in hospitals that they're just looking at your bone density. Bone density is also an important factor, way more important than BMI, because it indicates overall health in many ways, your nutrition and your physical activity for sure. Another conversation on bone density at some point and how to improve your bone density. But body composition is really the thing that is so much more indicative of so many other aspects of your life, how active you are, what your nutrition looks like, what your physical training program looks like, because you won't improve your body composition if you're just out running 3 miles every day. You'll improve your cardiovascular fitness endurance, one of the components of fitness. But if you're out walking and jogging every day, absolutely one or a couple of your components of fitness are up, but you're going to really be missing that muscular strength and that body composition. You will not improve your body composition and your muscular strength through running, but you will improve your cardiovascular endurance, and you might improve your muscular endurance, your cardiovascular endurance and fitness, and your musculature and your muscular endurance. Okay. So, body composition really is the better replacement for BMI. And of the 5 components of fitness, I would argue this is the one that you need to know. This is the only one that matters. And if you don't know what your body composition is, I encourage you to do some research in your area. Is there a place where you could get a reasonably priced DEXA scan? Most communities now offer it. You may have to travel to your neighboring larger city. If you can't, you can use the in-body assessment. In-body scans often are free in many gyms around the country these days. So an in-body scan is close. It's not as accurate as a DEXA scan. But the next time your doctor says, hey, your BMI is this, I encourage you to say, hey, doc, I really don't feel the BMI is accurate. Could you order me a DEXA scan so I could find out what my body composition is? Because you know what? My percent of body fat and my percent of lean muscle mass is so much more important to me and my overall health and longevity than BMI. BMI is outdated. I just encourage you to just let go of it altogether. And oh, by the way, if you want to calculate what your BMI is and see where you fall on that classification, just Google search BMI calculator. There's a great one that the National Institutes of Health, I'll put the link here if you're with me live. I will give you the link. And I realize if you're watching this in playback, you may not see it, but over on my blog, I can add it into the comments so that you can just click over if you want to know what your BMI is. And again, I want you to kind of forget about it, but I think it's really interesting if you know that you're fit to take a look at what your BMI gets classified as in terms of where you fall in that categorization. Because if you're above 25 on your BMI, it's going to put you into pre-obese. It's going to put you into that category where your doctor's like, hey, you need to lose a few pounds. But if you're fit and you're strong and you're working on your fitness every single day and your strength training, you'll see how BMI is just pure silliness. That's what I've got for you today. Oh, hey, by the way, if you've stumbled upon me for the first time, come on over to my website, hollyperkins.com/offer. And if you put your name and your email address in there, I'm going to email you a free 6-week strength and cardio program that you can follow. It's got the video tutorials. It's got sets and reps progression over the period of 6 weeks so that you can improve your muscular strength, your muscular endurance, your cardiovascular health and fitness. And when you improve those things, you're going to see an improvement in your flexibility and your muscular endurance. So come over to hollyperkins.com/offer so that you can download the 6-week strength and endurance program so that you can start working on these things. And oh, by the way, it's also entirely possible that if you improve your body composition, you will see a reduction in your BMI. That could absolutely happen if you are improving your lean muscle mass and bringing your overall body composition and body fat down so that you're improving your body composition. I hope you found this helpful today, and I hope you'll join me. I'm here every Tuesday at 1 o'clock on the East Coast over on Holly Perkins Fitness on Facebook. You can join me there if you'd like to join in live and say hello and ask some questions. And I'm going to take a few minutes to answer some questions right now and just kind of check in and see who's here. Jane, I'm so glad that you're here today. Hi, Claire. I have a primary care physician, and I was shocked to see that my records show my BMI. It does not seem to be a real indication of my health. I hear this all the time where my clients who I know are super healthy and super fit come to me and they're like, I know I'm fit. I'm fitter than I've ever been in my entire life, but my doctor said my BMI was high and I needed to lose a few pounds. So, Claire, I'm with you and I totally agree. Amy, I remember when my daughter's pediatrician told me her BMI was a bit high. Can you believe that? She was really short for her age, but she was active in power tumbling and acrobatic dance. I couldn't have cared less about the BMI. Amy, I'm so glad. Because again, part of me wants to have a conversation with that doctor. It infuriates me to think that that doctor just influenced you and potentially your daughter, right? When the truth is, the BMI scale never reflected children. It was adult sedentary men. So, how could that be accurate for our youngsters? How could that be accurate for a human body who isn't even fully developed yet? I would argue BMI is not even ever relevant, couldn't be relevant until you're 23 and above. So if you're 23 or younger, it's really irrelevant. In general, I find BMI irrelevant, period, end of story, but it's even more ludicrous if your body hasn't even reached full maturation. And some people feel that doesn't even happen until you're 25. Lois, I am doing great. Weight is steady, and I deadlifted 100 pounds today. That makes me so happy, Lois. I am so, 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 so happy. That is huge. Is that the first time? Is that the first time you've deadlifted 100 pounds? This is so exciting. I'm so proud of you. I love it. Congrats. And I'm curious where your calories are. If your weight is steady, you're probably ready to increase another 100. Let me know if you want to hop on the phone. I know that we've got a coaching call in the, um, you know, uh, queued up for you when you're ready for it. Let me know when you're ready to take advantage of that if you want. Elizabeth, it's a fruit tea, not a black tea. It has hibiscus and rose hips with pineapple and lychee. That sounds amazing. Jean Darby, hello. I am drinking cold orange passion from Carytown Teas. I don't know Carytown Teas. I need to look this up. I buy mine from a local shop. That sounds amazing. I want to check that out. Heidi is sharing a disclaimer on the, oh, I see. Exactly. Yeah. Inappropriate language. The names of the teas and the descriptions are hilarious, yet could be considered offensive. I hear you. I love that. That's awesome. Wonderful. Lois, makes me feel better because my BMI isn't dropping, but I know how strong I am and how much muscle I have. So again, you guys, Lois has taken off what, 40 pounds, more than 40 pounds, and yet her BMI hasn't come down. Think about that. Her height hasn't changed. She's gotten older. She's lost 40 pounds or more. She's at a body weight that reflects times when she was in her 20s and she's not in her 20s, and yet her BMI hasn't come down. Do you guys follow? Do you get that? Doesn't make any sense at all. She's older. She's the same height. She weighs 40 pounds less. She just deadlifted 100 pounds for the first time in her life. And yet her BMI has not improved. That just proves to you how it's something that we should just completely ignore. Lois, calories 1,300, almost ready to increase. Still waiting on the coaching call. Beautiful. So I vote you're ready to go to 1,400. If your weight has been steady and if it's been steady, you're ready to try out 1,400 and see what happens. You might even be ready for more than that. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If so, let me know. If you're watching this on the blog, you should be able to leave a comment down below, and I really would love to hear from you. So please say hello. Let me know if this was helpful. If you like this topic, please do share so that I can bring you more. And if this was an aha for you, and if this was helpful in terms of understanding how to navigate your future health, let me know. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.